again, the reason I put you on the cover is not only were you one of the major KRLA morning men, but you have really stayed with the station for 3 different decades, the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, and now the 90s. And I just thought that it's important.
I really didn't do mornings that long, as you know.
Well, that's what I want to get. I started with, what I first started with was the first time I heard you, like I'm 40 right now, I'll be 41 my next birthday. I was 14 years old, I think, or 15, and I was on a trip with my dad to Tucson, and I heard you at KFIF in Tucson.
Yeah, I was there.
Yeah. And from there you went to K-Men?
There I went to Kicks in Tucson, which was another station.
Okay, I didn't know that. Okay, I thought right to K-Men.
And then I went to K-Men. Yeah.
And
Tucson to K-Men.
And you were hired by Dave McCormick at K-Men. And they had you noon to 3.
Noon to 3.
Did you like the hours noon to 3? Did you see yourself as kind of a housewife type jock? Or?
No, not really, but I was getting closer to Los Angeles. So
that was your goal, was LA.
Yeah.
Now I want to ask you, I've been trying to get a photo, do you have the picture of you that they used at K-Men with the tie? They had like a light coat, like a light sport coat and a tie, and they used it in The Entertainer. I've been trying to find that for years. Do you have a copy of that? I'd love to borrow it and make a print.
I may have.
You got it, I would love it. I've been trying to find that for years.
I'll see what I can
do. They had you looking really sharp. They had you with the coat and tie, and you look kind of like, real,
Ready?
Okay. Yeah, Russ, whatever you like. Let me see how I get this thing going. Okay, let me see it's still running. So anyway, so you went to, if you have a picture of that I can borrow, I've been trying to find that for years. Nobody has it, but I remember seeing it when I was a kid, and I lost the copy I had back when I was like 18 years old. But I would love to get a picture of that, because you look just, GQ, better than Johnny Hayes, So anyways, so you went to K-Men, and then from K-Men you went to KGFJ. Now how'd that come about? Because KGFJ was like a ethnic black station, and you were doing top 40. How did you get to, what was the reason for that? Can you remember that?
I was invited to Four Tops at the Coconut Grove in the Ambassador Hotel to one of their shows, Motown Spectacular or something. And I sat across the table from Jim Randolph, who was the program director.
Yeah, I remember 3 to 6 in the afternoon.
Yeah, Jim Randolph.
I think you took his place on the air.
I'm not sure how that worked, but I took that shift 3 to 6 on KGFJ. He hired me, and he liked me. We talked. You could see I really liked soul music, and I certainly...
your voice, especially,
So they offered me 3 to 6, and from there I did that for, 9 months, maybe close to a year.
Now, this is a story that I remember. I was listening one morning in 1969, and William F. Williams, who was the morning man after Dave Hall, said, I'm going to give the show away to a caller. And he had people call up and audition and stuff. And suddenly a guy calls up and says, hi, my name is Russ. And William said, read this on the air. And this guy named Russ did this. And he said, okay, you've got the show. What's your name? Well, my name is Russ O'Hara. Immediately, I knew who you were because I had heard you before. But the idea was
set up.
Yeah, I realized that. What was the story behind that? Now, Doug Cox hired you, I'm assuming.
Right.
Why did they have you to take William's place?
I have no idea. I have no idea. No idea at all. Except I was doing real good at KGFJ. Why they put me against Morgan in KHJ, I'll never know.
Do you realize that KRLA, these are the legacy of morning men. You had Emperor Hudson in 63, followed by Charlie O'Donnell, followed by Dave Hall, followed by Williams, followed by you. I mean, you were really in an important seat in radio.
Tell me about it.
You were morning man at a major station at an important time.
Yes, I was. And that was nice, but that's not where they should have put me. They should have put me where I finally ended up and where I made my mark, which was 6 to 9 at night when I got involved with all the concerts and really pushed, because I did a lot of PR for the station during that.
How'd you get the morning show on KRLA? Did they call you up from KGFJ, or did you apply directly, or?
They called me up.
Doug Cox.
Yeah. Let me see. The exact scenario was Tony Richland, who was an independent promo guy, said they're interested in talking to you, so give Doug Cox a call. So I called him up. I was on the air. I was doing 3 to 6. Called him up, and
I remember that.
He says, "Come see me tomorrow. I might have something for you." And let's see, what did we do? We met at the radio station, went over to the tap room, had breakfast or something.
Yeah, the old tap room.
The old tap room. And
they
offered me mornings.
Did they say why they were getting rid of Williams?
No.
Why they were replacing Williams? What was the story? Why the setup? Why they had you call in to audition?
No, somebody's
You remember that day? You remember the day, though?
Yeah. I'm sitting at the beach.
Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
See, it shows, because I heard that day. I mean, I was a really devoted listener in those days, and somehow I remember that morning, and I heard it very well, and I knew who you were because I remember you from K-Men and KFIF. So I said, well, this is a setup. This is Russ O'Hara. This is all pre-set up. Okay, they had you doing mornings. Then, in around June, after about 3 months, they moved you to evenings, and they moved Jay Stevens in the mornings.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the morning show is traditionally the most important show on the station.
That's right.
How did they tell you to go, hey, Russ, you're working mornings, you're a morning man, we now want you to do evenings? What was the story behind that?
They felt that I'd be better at night than in the morning. I was.
Did you feel it was like a step down
No,
after being
not really.
morning man? I mean, in a major 50,000 watt station?
Nope. I didn't.
So
I knew that I could really generate some energy in the evenings.
Right.
And I did.
Now, in 1970, okay, you did 6 until 9 to 1970. In September of 1970, they got Shadow Stevens from KHJ. They moved, before that it was Bob Dayton. I mean, you were doing 6 to 9. Dayton was 9 to midnight, right after you.
Mm-hmm.
When Shadow came on, they moved Shadow in your show, and they moved you 9 to midnight. What was the reason for that? Any idea?
Nope. You know, there was...
Too long ago.
No. There was a lot of... There was speculation, not only by me, but by a lot of people. But they used to make... upper management would make changes to affect the ratings. For whatever reason. We don't know whether they... It was almost sometimes...
Was Larry Webb, Hal Matthews? Because Darren was PD at the time.
I don't know if it was Hal Matthews, Larry Webb. It could have been somebody else. I'm not going to say any names because I don't know for sure.
Yeah,
it's just
no, I don't either.
In my mind.
So long ago.
So long ago. Well, I wouldn't say any names anyway. But the point is that it was almost like these guys wanted the station not to do so well. Because when we were doing
the second one who told me that. Darren told me the same thing. That they wanted the station to fail.
Yep.
Darren told me exactly the same
There was
thing.
rumors that there were people in the organization that were trying to buy the station, so they wanted the ratings to go down, so that the price would go down. Well, we don't know. I don't know any names.
I do know that.
Yeah.
I did find that out, that Fry was one of the ones behind that. But it doesn't matter. I mean, it's all...
When we'd be doing the best, they'd make a change. When I was most popular emceeing the concerts...
That's right.
The phones wouldn't quit, and I was actually beating Humble Harv on KHJ in my time slot at one time, which was not an easy thing to do because they were an established, consistent rocker. They'd make a change.
Yeah. Well, Darren told me, and you know what is exciting, and I gotta share this with you. I was in 1969, late 69, I was at the Three Dog Night concert at the Forum, and I was sitting way up in the bleachers, and I remember seeing you MC the group on stage, and I mean, never in my wildest dreams would I think, 25 years later, I'd be sitting across from you right now. So, I mean, you got to understand, this is really exciting for me. Imagine you meeting somebody who was one of your great, idols in radio, and you can see how I feel. It's just mind-boggling.
I still get a glow in my heart when I walk into the radio station to go to work.
You sound on the air. You still sound fresh, and you sound spontaneous. I mean, you never sound canned like some of the guys.
I never will.
Even when you do a tape show, you sound live, which is unique to be able to pull it off. Johnny can't do that. When Johnny Hayes does a tape show, you know he's taped. At least I know he's taped. When you're doing a tape show, it's hard to really tell. Is that tracks or is that really live? Now, the next question I want to ask you is, in 1971, the station went progressive. Shadow wanted to put in his album-oriented rock on FM, and you left. What was the reason for you leaving at that time rather than staying on with the AOR format? Did you quit?
Shadow and I were real close friends. Shadow and I had worked together in Tucson at Kicks. And then Shadow went back east, and when Shadow came out, we used to hang out a lot together. And that's really what we talk about. We talk about formats. He and I both knew that the wave of the future was more album-oriented music. Mm-hmm. Progressive, if you want to say it.
Yeah.
And my concept was a blend from what Top 40, whatever that was at the time, and progressive music.
Yeah, like
And
long plays, as they call
Long play,
them.
longer cuts.
Longer cuts.
More in the evening, you know, when it would,
Right.
you know, where you had a lighter log, you could do that. And I formatted an idea. And we talked about it. It was very strange when they made him PD. Then suddenly our friendship seemed to change a little bit, and I was let go.
Oh, they let you go at that
They
time.
let me go. Yep.
Did they think you just were not progressive enough, that you were
No,
too
I
top
just-
40 oriented? Was that it?
I don't know what the exact reason was.
I know it's over 20 years ago, but
I'll never know exactly the reason, but it wasn't a very good move because the ratings went down.
when the whole station, the progressive format obviously didn't work because it couldn't keep up with FM, you know.
Well, that's true too.
Okay, so you were let go in '71. Now that was by Shadow. It wasn't by Saint. It was after Dick Saint left his PD.
Saint let me go too. The station went through a whole bunch of changes.
Yeah.
They'd fire me, they'd hire me back, they'd fire me, they'd hire me back. You know, it's,
Now in now we're getting into then you went to KKDJ. Because I made an air check of you in the summer of '72. Then in late '70s.
Have you got that air check?
Yeah, I sure do. I'll have it with me. I can dub it for you. I'll mail it to you if you'd like. Anyways, you returned to Caroline midnight to 6 when Reb Foster and Steve Brown had the Future Rock. How did you come back to Caroline then? Where were you between? You were KKDJ and
KKDJ, worked at K100.
that was later. The disco. I remember
Was
you
it?
did the
Yeah.
disco 100. You did the disco stuff then. How did you end up midnight to 6 at Caroline in '72?
Reb, my good friend, and brought me back. He said, I don't know what shift I can give you, but I'm going to get you back into the station, get you working again. So they put me midnight 6.
And it was okay with you, even though you had been morning man, even though, you know.
You know,
See, Dave Hull, for example, would never go back midnight to 6 if he was once morning man. You know, I mean, some of these guys, they just...
I didn't care when to work at the station. It's also, you know, it's
That's
like
neat.
not a hard job, by the way, you know, being at this job. I mean, let's face it. I mean, what do I want to do? Go out and sell shoes? Or what?
Easy, you know, no lifting and...
There's no lifting. But it's a heavy job.
So you worked midnight to 6. And then they tried that was the Future Rock. Then Shadow left, and all those guys left, and then O'Hara, Brown and Foster made the two-man format.
Well,
okay?
they had nothing to do with that.
Oh, thanks.
I mean, they went along with it, but I promise you that was not
Do you
their
want
idea.
A1 or ketchup?
A1 would be A1. It's a pretty big steak. There you go.
Okay, it's nice.
Now, they had you teaming up with Steve Brown. Why did they have you with Steve Brown rather than one of the other guys? I was curious, because he came out of Oregon.
There was no rhyme or reason to this.
I mean, they had Brown and O'Hara. I mean, you guys had never done two-man radio, and yet here you were, you guys, teamed up.
It was some upper management decision. Once again, it would almost look if they planned to make the station sound strange, they couldn't have done it any better. You know what I mean?
Well, then after the two-man shows, they had you working midnight to 6 again, and they had the one-man shows.
Yep.
And then they let everybody go, and it was just Johnny Hayes doing voice tracks. And then you were gone from 1973 to 1981, and then you came back, filling in for Humble Harv 1 day a week. What was the story why Harv could not work that one night? Do you remember?
I think that was...
Because you said you were his permanent, you were the permanent Humble Harv sub for like 1 day a week, every Monday, I think it was every Monday you were there.
I have no idea why.
Just
I don't know. I never asked
Harv
questions.
had something to do, and you know.
Right.
Now I've got to ask you this: you were always the MC for Three Dog Night concerts, and yet I remember seeing you back in 19.
But I did most of the concerts that came through in that time period.
Well,
all the Caroline concerts.
In particular, Three Dog Night, because in 1983 or '85 rather, I was down in Orange County at the Orange County Fair. And you gave me a KEZY pin. I went up to you after the concert, and I said, Russ, I said, Bill Earl, I said, I want to say hi to you. And you said, hey, man, here's a pin. You gave me a KEZY pin I still have. How did you, what's your relationship with Three Dog Night?
They were always...
close to the guys?
Yeah. I was more, of course, when they were big. Kind of lost track of each other over the years. Well, it was Reb's group.
Mm-hmm.
Reb wasn't with the station during their heyday because he was so busy with them. But anytime I'd ask them to come down for an interview, they'd come down en masse. Anytime I needed them for anything, they would come through for me. They were
You
just
still,
a really,
you still
really
talk
good.
to the guys now?
Yeah, every once in a
Which
while.
guy are you close to? Corey?
Danny.
Danny? Danny was my favorite.
Danny's a real nice guy.
And he lives in LA, I understand.
Haven't seen him lately, but he's a good guy. Always nice to me.
Now, how did the thing about, and you always had a trademark saying, this is Russ O'Hara, always hungry, always hungry. Now, here you are having a big steak. I
That's
mean,
right.
is it just like a gimmick, or is it?
I don't know. I was on it when I was on at night. I figured, well, that they're, or even afternoons. I go, they're going to eat. They are eating. They have eaten. You know, oh, hungry. Everybody likes food and stuff. So I'll just. It was a natural O'Hara.
O'Hara.
You go anywhere with an O in front of your name.
Yeah.
I mean, I did.
Because in the morning, used to always, what I was told was this thing about in the morning you always said, I'm always hungry for a Danish and stuff. You used to always say.
I talk about, you know. I've
Now,
always talked
let me
about
ask you this. This is something that another jock told me about you. He said that every jock, when they talk on the radio, they have somebody in mind. They have a certain listener in mind they're talking to. And they said that Russ O'Hara, whenever he does a show, he's always picturing a good-looking California girl. Is that true? I mean, have you heard that before? That your listener you're projecting to is a typical good-looking California girl. Is that sort of who you have in mind when you're talking, or?
I like that concept. Yeah, I sure. Yeah, they're very responsive to my radio program. I want you to know.
That's what Murphy told me that. He says that every jock projects a certain listener like that they're specifically talking to, and that always came up.
Well, I love the pretty girls, man. I'm a beach. You know, I like it.
Did you hear Darren's comment on the reunion weekend? He said we're all glad to come back here. We all grew older and up, except for Russ O'Hara. He just grew older. Did you hear that?
No, but Darren's a friend of mine.
I know. Obviously, it's a cute little thing. But I mean, like for example, Darren has gone on to business radio, and I mean, he has the image of being.
How are you doing? Everything okay?
But yet, my God, I mean, you have this image of perpetual youth, and I mean, it's remarkable. I mean, it's great that you're able to. I mean,
So I can do that.
yeah, you can get away with it, and that's the whole thing. A lot of guys can't, but yet you're able to successfully, and it's neat, you know. Because I mean, as we all get older, I mean, you know, we're all trying to hang on to what our best days.
I'm a happy camper. I have a really great attitude.
You do, yeah. Well, it's admirable because you never sound old. A lot of these guys, Dick Hug, for example, sounds old. But you don't sound old, you know. And I mean, a lot of the guys, after a while, they sound old. They sound tired. Russ O'Hara, nobody could ever say that about.
No.
Let me ask you this: did you ever try to work for the Bill Drake organization, KHJ? Did they ever want to put you on at KHJ, or did you ever try for that, like some of the other guys did, like Jay Stevens, Johnny Darren,
talked to him. Drake and those guys worked for him before they worked at KRLA. I should say, Jay Stevens worked for Drake before he worked for KRLA. So did Darren in San Diego.
And how about yourself, though? You never did.
But I did work for Drake at K100 in the disco format.
That's right, Disco 100 at night.
Right. He was very nice.
But I mean, in the glory days, like, did you ever aspire to work at KHJ like these other guys, or get into the Drake organization like all these other fellows did?
I felt that KRLA was my goal, and I knew that you would have more freedom at KRLA. The Drake organization was highly formatted, nothing wrong with that, but I wanted a little more freedom musically, and I got it at night at KRLA. When I first went to the radio station, I walked in the door, there was a wall of music. Everywhere you looked in that picture, there was albums around.
That's right.
And that was exciting to work in this, and you could even bring some of your own records in if you wanted. And I liked that. And slowly, over the years, that eroded, and with each change and each new program director and each new whatever they were into, that would change.
Yeah, I was told to ask you a question. Did you ever use the name Russ Sullivan?
No.
Chance. You never used the name Russ Sullivan? Okay. Because apparently there was a Russ Sullivan, and a fellow told me, a guy from Bakersfield said, is Russ O'Hara the guy who called himself Russ Sullivan at one time?
Nope.
Never did. Okay.
Never did.
Scratch that one. Okay, in early '83, Terry McGovern left. They moved Dave Hull to the mornings, and they had you audition for the 3 to 7 show for 1 week, and you were great. And then they had Foster the following week, but neither one of you guys got it. Do you know the story behind that? Do you remember that?
What time period was this again?
January of '83. Terry McGovern was mornings. Dave Hull was afternoon drive. McGovern left. They moved Hull to mornings. They needed an afternoon guy. They had
that was a whole new crew.
Burt West.
I was running it. But I didn't know them very well. They were very nice people. But once again, who knows what manipulations were going on behind the scenes.
Okay, the other question was, there was a rumor in the early 80s that Russ O'Hara had inherited $250,000 or something and drove around the red luxury car around town. Is that true, or did you hear that too? Or
I was doing pretty well with business, and I had a brand new Cadillac, a nice Cadillac, and I was living in Laguna.
No huge inheritance.
No
of
inheritance.
$500,000. Okay,
no.
that was another rumor that came about. Now I understand in the 80s you went back to Cayman and did some work at Cayman for a while.
Yep.
Did they make a big production out of you were coming back home to Cayman, or?
They did for a while. I got excellent ratings. I got the top ratings on the station when I was there. I did middays.
Wow.
I just went back to. I've worked at radio stations up and down in my career just to work, just to keep working because I like it. May not be the correct career move at the time, or the market where somebody might think that I should work, but I just like to work.
How would you? Okay, back in the main thing I wanted to ask you about was in '71. Shadow took over the station and put in the AOR format.
Right.
You had mentioned once before that at that time you didn't think it would work. What was your opinion behind that? How do you?
What did I think? I thought it would work properly done.
Why do you think the station wanted to go from Top 40 to AOR? Did they think that it was because Top 40 was like a thing of the past or a dinosaur? Or?
I'm not sure exactly what his thoughts were, or if he was really controlling it. The upper management had a lot of say. The program director would be accused of making decisions. A lot of time, I'm not sure it was his decision.
Well, I had heard a lot of stories about, Dick Saint, that he was, great guy, but, his mind was sometimes elsewhere other than the programming duties, that, sometimes he, would rather go out party than, program direct, and that, when Shadow got in there, that, that it was, he felt the Top 40 was like a thing of the past and everything.
Well, had he properly blended the new music with the old, or with the Top 40 with the coming progressive music, maybe KRLA could have done something because we were still an AM station. I think that was part of my trick when I was successful, because I did that. I played both kinds of music, and I played the longer cuts and got involved with the concerts, so I had some credibility with the young people.
You did. I mean, hey, I saw you when I was 19 years old. I remember seeing you down on stage, and as I said, to this very day, I mean, the fact that I'm sitting across from you is a thrill to me, knowing that at one time, I mean, hey, you were a guy that I admired down on the stage.
When I first went to work for KRLA, here's a good story. You might like to put this in your. I went to the Teenage Fair. It was on at the Palladium in Hollywood on Sunset, right?
Right.
I had it every March or so, or April, during spring break, right? And I'm wandering backstage, watching the groups and doing my thing. And I saw Jimi Hendrix back there.
Wow.
And I said, Jimmy, Russ O'Hara, KRLA, any chance of seeing you play?
Exciting.
And I talked. He didn't want to do it. Finally he said, okay, well, I don't have a guitar here. And I go, well, there's a Fender booth down here. We'll go restring a guitar for a left-handed guitar player. And he goes, yeah? I go, yeah. And I think that'll inspire you to play. So I pushed and kept reminding him that I play his records all the time on KRLA and every other station I worked at. Finally, he said, okay. He got up there. He says, you can't say my name, though. I said, I don't think I'll have to. So I announced it left-handed. Ladies and gentlemen, here's a left-handed guitar player.
He didn't want to be publicized he was there.
I think I had something to do with contracts.
Okay.
And business, right? Because he wasn't scheduled to play at the Teenage
As
Fair.
it always is, yeah. You know, it's always a business
Anyway,
arrangement.
I sold him on the idea of doing it, and he did. And it was amazing to stand there and watch him. So he played at the Teenage Fair for free. There was Jimi Hendrix. And for KRLA.
Let me ask you, when you were an aspiring disc jockey, like it came in, and KFI, now where did you grow up, by the way, in California?
Yeah.
L.A. or Orange County, or?
Obviously, I grew up here till I was about
Like high school? You went to
9.
High school in L.A. County or Orange
No,
County?
I went to Canada. My stepfather and mother lived in Canada for a while, so I was a minister's son in Canada.
No kidding.
No kidding.
Okay, you said you always wanted to go to... Who are the people you admired on KRLA? When you said you wanted to work at that station someday, who are the people that impressed you? Who are the guys that you liked?
Hudson, Hall, Ted Quillen
Oh, yeah.
of the Quiver and Quillen clan.
Great guy, yeah. Still in Las Vegas.
Yeah. Working?
Advertising agency. Quillen Country. Yeah, I just saw him recently. Very nice
Making
guy.
money?
I guess, you know. I'm going to tell you what Quillen said to me. I asked him, I said, Ted, you're a legend in L.A. Everybody admires you. Why don't you go back to Los Angeles? And he says, Bill, why would I go back there? He said, I've been there. And when I was there, I was #1. Why would I go back now? It's an interesting way of looking at it. So when you wanted to go to KRLA, the people you admired were like Hudson Hall, that era, the
Reb Foster.
the Beatle period, Reb Foster.
Reb Foster. Eubanks. All those folks. Those are the folks I listened to.
Who are the guys as you got to KRLA, who are some of the guys that you've been closer to over the years? So China tells me you're pretty close with him. Who are some of the fellows?
Chad is a good friend. Let's see. Lee Sims was a good friend of mine. Reb Foster.
Do you see Reb once in a while?
Once in a while, yeah.
Is he okay? Is he in pretty good health? Because there's been
Yeah,
rumors that he, is sick or he can't get out or something.
He's okay.
That's-
He's a little, he's not working, so sometimes that can be depressing.
Well,
He's all right.
some of these guys, do they really? I mean, these guys must have made a lot of money in their time. Like Foster managing Steppenwolf. These guys obviously probably don't have to work if they have enough saved up. Do they? Aren't they just happy just being retired, or do they?
Some of them are. Some of them just working. It's hard to put a finger on what people feel, but
You know about Roger Christian? What happened to him? You heard about that?
I didn't hear the details.
Well, he died. Okay,
Right.
off the record, it was a suicide through I was told Prozac, the antidepressant, that he apparently was on this antidepressant, and apparently that it's like Del Shannon, where it brings out a lot of suicidal tendencies in some people, and it was a suicide. I was at his memorial service. Gary Owens was there. Robert W. Morgan was there. Jim Pewter was there. That was it. No other radio people were there. Just other record industry. Brian Wilson wasn't there. Jan Berry wasn't there. Dean Torrance wasn't there. But it was said he was only 57.
It's a drag.
Yeah. But I guess that they said that he felt depressed. That he his big days I guess were behind him more or less.
Some folks have a problem with that.
How have you attributed, your longevity? How you've, stayed at this for so many years, where some of these guys you never hear of anymore, and yet here you are. You're still on the radio, which is remarkable in itself.
Love of life. What can I tell you? Just the basics, man. I like what I do. I really like being on the radio. I like Southern California. I like KRLA. I love KRLA. I can't tell you how many times I've been there and been back.
I know. I think you have the record. I think seriously. I think of the record of the number of people who have gone and come back. I think you have the record. You left. You came in '69, left in '71. No, left in '71. Came back in '72. Left in '73. Came back in '81. Left in '83, and then came back in. For the reunion, and then 89, yeah.
88.
88, 89.
Yeah, sometime. Yeah. It may be. I'm a great survivor. good attitude.
Do you get, I mean, when you're out like in public, do people once in a while recognize you?
Sure.
Do they come up and they say, I know who you are, or I recognize your voice and stuff?
Yeah, but,
How does it make you feel? Is it pretty
makes you feel
exciting?
great. Sure. It's nice to be recognized. It's nice to walk in places and have the radio station on.
Of the guys that worked at KRLA, the jocks, we were saying the guys you were closest to, the person you're probably closest to would be what, China or Reb? Or
Reb.
Well, he's, he goes, he virtually built the station. I mean, he was PD back in the time of the Beatles, when the Beatles first came out, him and Dick Moreland. In fact, today, is the 25th anniversary of the last Beatle concert in Los Angeles.
Today.
1966, August 20, in the Daily News today, there's a big article about it. There's Bob Eubank's picture in there, and they interviewed him. Yeah, 25 years ago today was the Beatles concert. How do you suppose, for example, how do you suppose Johnny Hayes has lasted as long as he has? He's a very hard person to get to know. I mean, he's sometimes I've talked to him, he's as nice as can be. Other times, he's like on a different planet. What's your, impression of him?
Well, I've known John for a long time. I'm close to Johnny too. Anybody that's been in and out of KRLA very long would have to know Johnny.
Oh yeah,
he's always been there.
On and off, yeah.
He's a unique animal, very private guy.
Is he a nice guy off the air?
I think so.
He's friendly, because a lot of times he seems very, he seems,
Maybe he's just a little shy.
Yeah, I think so. That's what I was told.
More than being anything else, that's exactly what he is. He's just a little shy, but you get to know him, he's a great guy. We were just having dinner the other night, man, and talking about radio and stuff over the years. It's been a great time.
Anyway, it's about the book I'm doing. It's virtually the same format of what I did the first time, but the first time did not look good. I was very unhappy with the way that turned out. I did not have full control over the project. This is going to be big print. It's going to be all pictures. All text. No pictures. Just the cover and the back cover, and that's it. It'll be strictly a history book. What are some things that you'd like to see about you in there? What are some, in other words, if I'm going to be writing about Russ O'Hara and your contribution to KRLA, is there any stories or anything you'd specifically like to have in there that, of course,
you can talk about how the concerts were very successful at the station, and the station did very well during the time that I was emceeing concerts. When I first came to the radio station, there was no jock out there doing MC work.
That's right.
And I approached Wolf and Rissmiller, who were concert associates at the time, and also Sight and Sound, which was another company that there was two companies doing.
So Eubanks wasn't involved at that time with it?
Not at that time. I don't think he wasn't with the station at the time. Mm-hmm. And I told him that, I'm from the station. I do, the evening shift, which is prime to promote concerts and stuff, because there's a different audience than in the mornings and the day. More youth are listening, and more people that are interested in concerts and stuff. So they went for it, and so I would do 2 shows at Santa Monica Civic, 2 shows at the Forum or wherever, and then 2 shows out in the Orange County or Long Beach area every weekend. For that time period, Creedence, the Stones.
Yeah. Newport 69, I remember that.
Newport 69, I was there.
I know, Devonshire Downs.
Yeah, rode in there with Jimi Hendrix, worked with him again. Yeah. He was at the hotel and met him and went over there with him. It's a lot of fun.
What do you think has happened to the state of radio today? Why is radio so narrow-casted, and why are they not turning out more people like Russ O'Hara? Why are the kids today aren't as talented as you, for example?
Well, they don't even let them be as talented. They have no imagination. Many radio stations today are owned by big corporations, run by consultants that are not from the area.
Yeah.
Too many focus groups, too much research.
Yeah. Same thing Murphy says.
And the basics of radio have been forgotten. It's too highly formatted. It's okay to have a format, but within the framework of a format, let the people have a little personality. You hire them to.
They don't want. Unfortunately, stations don't really want personalities.
They just want voices, right?
Well,
that's why it stifles anybody with any kind of creativity at all.
I agree. I think radio stinks now. It's terrible. It's in the worst state it's ever been. They're not They're not okay, you came of era into the generation of the early 70s, late 60s. There's no new generation of people that are, going to replace people from your era. The people getting into radio today are just, they're not personalities, and they're terrible. They're terrible. I don't know, I think the state of radio is terrible. That's what I'm trying to do, is trying to chronicle in a history book saying this was a dream house. This is the way station, at one time there was really a station that existed that produced such major people all at the same time. Every 3 hours, a different jock. Everyone was as good in their own way as the next one.
Right.
And yet, look
it's
at
a special station. That's why I wanted to go to KRLA.
Yeah, well,
I felt that Drake had a lot to do with them.
How
nothing against Bill Drake, but I think the concept of...
He made KRLA catch up, there's no doubt.
Yeah.
KRLA was stagnant in '68. When Doug Cox and Johnny Darren came in, they were definitely playing catch up with Bill Drake, and that's why they hired, Drake jocks like Jay Stevens, Dick Saint, Shadow Stevens, Johnny, people of that particular group.
They had me there, and I got the best ratings. And I didn't work for Drake.
That was interesting how you never did. You're one of the few that didn't. You went from KGFJ, which was an R&B station. Yeah. Did you know Jim Wood very well? Who was
medium? I didn't get to know him too well.
Because you were one of the few white jocks at KGFJ.
That's right. One of the only ones.
You, Hunter Hancock, Jim Wood, and I think Lucky Pierre were the only 4 real, white jocks that were successful in a black, type of format.
Had to have a lot of soul.
Well, you pulled it off. Beside the concerts, how else would you like to be, thought of in this book? 'Cause I appreciate you meeting me here. And
just loving KRLA, and that's why.
How'd you come back in '89? How I know Murphy put in for this weekend thing. A lot of guys put in for it, but you got it. How were you able to get it when these other guys wouldn't? You think? Because they needed a weekender. I know.
Enthusiasm.
That was it.
Yeah, I just told him, I go, you want to hire me, I'll be the easiest to work with, and I want full-time, so, you're hiring a part-time guy that's going to try to be full-time, so that's where I'm at. And, I kept my word, and they kept their word, and that's why I'm doing so well with them now.
But since '73, they haven't had you full-time. When are they going to do it? When are they going to give you a regular shift?
Soon. Soon, we hope. Rumor is soon. We'll see what happens.
And you think it'll be afternoons?
Yeah.
That'll be great. I'd love to see it. Do you think KRLA is going to last as an oldies station? Do you think they're going to go satellite? What do you think the future of KRLA is?
That would be hard to guess. It depends a lot on the economy. A lot of stuff.
How do you think Mike Wagner has lasted as long as he has? I mean, his PD.
He's a good program director.
He's been there since the Greater Media took over. I mean,
how many years has that been now?
He started in early '85. That would be, almost 7 years now. It's a long time.
He spends a lot of time in there, I'll tell you that. He's very dedicated. Considering that it is an AM station that does have some sports during the wintertime. We have the Clippers.
You think the station will ever go on the FM band? Get rid of classics and KRLA will move over to the FM? There was talk they should have done that in '85, but...
They didn't do it, did they? In KRLA FM?
Well, it would have, instead of AM, just moved the whole thing over to FM. Instead of just moved KRLA to FM at that time. Jay Stevens told me, he says that would have been the smartest thing if they had done it then, before KODJ or CBS FM or...
Yeah, that's probably a good idea. You're right. Well, they didn't do that. But they're a great radio station. And, just keep plugging along. Who knows? They don't do too bad for the ratings that they get. They kind of go after Hispanic. It's half Hispanic.
Yeah, well, they're the ones that seem to. My wife's Hispanic. Yeah, my wife's Hispanic, and her family. They all think of KRLA as the Huggy Boy and the Art LeBeau and that type of thing. That type of format.
Right.
I wonder where did all the listeners go who used to listen to the station in the city? Did they just move on to Coast or something? I mean, you wonder where they all went. I still listen once. I mean, I listen once in a while for entertainment, but I'd rather have them play '70s music, and they really don't. I prefer hearing, early stuff from the '70s, but oldies stations seem to be stuck in like the late '50s, early '60s.
Well, if you've listened lately, we're playing more '60s and '70s.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we're doing. I've made some changes. Tried to streamline the format.
Well, the main reason, as you probably want to know, the reason that I'm doing this is because, if you know the story, I was sent to military school for 2.5 years, and I was in 4th and 5th grade. Okay, I was at Mount Low in Altadena, which is torn down now, and then I was in St. Catherine's in Anaheim.
Went to Page Military Academy when I was a kid.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Well, I went to military school. When I came back, I didn't know anybody in my neighborhood. And I'm an only child. Didn't have a whole lot of friends before I was in military school. So when I get out of military school, I had nothing to do to keep me busy. So my uncle gave me a little transistor radio. And that's how I started listening to radio. And that's why I spent so many hours listening to the radio and hearing you guys. Because basically, until I got to know other kids in my neighborhood, radio was my companionship. And because of that, radio has always been very special to me, because we can't live our lives over again. We can't be kids over again. And because of all those hours I spent listening to the radio, and also hanging around KRLA back in the 60s, and the engineers used to always let me back on the other side of the glass to watch you guys through the wall and stuff, through the glass. I decided that it's important to talk about how important, this station was at one time.
You were right about that steak. It's
Is that a good one?
Let me see.
Oh, sure.
What we got here?
I'm trying to think of anything else I want to ask you that now that I have this great opportunity to talk to you.
Relax. You have to fire them off,
Oh yeah, well it's a thrill to me, believe me. I mean, imagine if you were sitting, across from, say, one of your, childhood heroes. I mean, you'd probably say, "Oh my God, what do I say now?" This is the schedule. This is the lineup of when all the guys came and so on. If Harv did leave the 3 to 7 afternoon show, what would he do? Would he just retire, or would he just...
I have no idea. That's still speculation. That's not for print.
Oh, of course, yeah.
But
I'm just wondering what would happen
if
he did leave. Where would he go?
Rumor has he's going to another station.
Okay, let me ask you this. Say a full-time shift opens at KRLA. Do you think you'd be the most logical person to get it?
I think so. That's what they're priming me for.
Who do you think
I just got finished about 15 days straight doing 3 to 7s.
Who do you think would take your place on weekends? You think they'd bring in Tom Murphy?
I have no idea. There's been no room. I haven't heard that yet.
Well, you know how good Tom Murphy is.
Yeah,
I mean, Murphy
should be working.
Why isn't he working 5 years?
I don't know.
I talk to him every week. David Schwartz, I know, talks to him.
Right.
The guy is as funny as can be.
Right.
He can't get hired anywhere. It's just, a person of his talent. It's unbelievable.
It's really hard to. Once you get out for a while, sometimes they forget you real fast. New young program directors come along with all their buddies and cohorts. A lot of guys from back east come in, PDs and on this coast and.
But I would say anybody who knows radio knows how talented, world-famous Tom Murphy is. I mean, Tom Murphy is just... Because he told me he put in for the same thing you did, the weekend thing, and then he felt bad because he didn't get it. But he likes you, and he's happy that you were able to get it. But he's still he can't understand why Mike doesn't give him a shift or anything. Has Mike, let me ask this, has Mike ever said anything, or the people at the station, about the thing I'm doing, the Dream House? What is it, I never hear anything. Are they pretty favorable to what I'm doing? Or
I think
curious.
so. I'll ask for you, I'll tell you that.
They don't say very much, but you see, I don't work in radio. I'm sort of, on the sidelines, so I never get any input. I was just wondering if they've ever said anything about,
And they went down to we were coming out at 7:30 and 12:30.
Yeah, and they brought you back. I think they brought you back in midnight to 6 and early 72. And then they had you teaming with Steve Brown. I thought that was kind of a mismatch because you and Brown was very top 40, and you were very sort of heavier. More of the hey, Russ O'Hara, It didn't really. I didn't think it sent. I think I sent you an air check of that. In fact, if I'm not mistaken. Did you like the air checks I sent?
Yeah, and they got wrecked. So I need all the air checks you got of me again.
They got wrecked.
Well, they got wrecked. Somebody like screwed up the tape.
Wow. I'll make them again for you if you want. Anything I got. Oh yeah.
You may have all the only stuff of that era that there is. Because you know, when you're working, you keep forgetting to. I better save this for posterity. You know, because you're doing it. It's immediate right there.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
And beside, I mean, one thing in talking to the guys like yourself, a lot of the guys I've talked to aren't really aware how important you guys really were at the time. But I mean, you know, you guys talked to the baby boom generation, people of my, 40 years old, and it was an important group of people that will always remember people like Dave Hull, Russ O'Hara, Casey Kasem, Dick Biondi. There's a rub right there. Are you pretty close to Humble Harvey Miller yourself?
No, I'm not real close, but we're good friends.
When he was, when he came back in '81, as I mentioned before, he was off one night a week. Was it a deal with you and him to take his show, or did he specifically want you to take his show, or was it just?
I'm not sure. I got hired by
Jack Roth.
Jack Roth.
Jack Roth. Yeah. These are great pictures here. That was the trailer. Remember at the Rose Parade in '81? New Year's '82, January 1st, 1982. This was the trailer on Colorado Boulevard, and you were there. You did, I think, the 1 to 5 show that night.
Yeah, I was there.
And Biondi, they brought Biondi back. Now, what's the story about you being out in Palm Springs? Are you living in Palm Springs,
No.
or are you kind of like? Because I thought you were in Rancho Cucamonga, and then I heard you were in Norwalk or something.
Right. So
you're in this area.
I'm in the process of getting closer because I envision a full-time shift here real soon.
Russ, I hope you have it.
Yeah. There's old Roger Christian.
If the book comes out, I hope you talk about it on the air. I don't know how much freedom you guys have, but if you like it, I sure hope you talk it up.
Yeah, I can do that.
After all, you're on the cover.
On the cover.
So, do you say you went to high school in Canada? Is that it?
Yeah, I did.
But you grew up in Southern California?
You got pictures of the building that ain't even there anymore.
That's right. Yeah, it's all remodeled now. In fact, there are pictures of the building with all the guts torn out of it. You want to see some sad pictures, keep going, and you'll see some pictures that'll make you cry. Look at this. That's in the booth. That's where the old booth used to be. I had a guard let me in to take those pictures. This is that post in the middle, that old post, and this is, see the blinds? This is inside the booth looking out toward the lobby. That's the inside of the blinds. Isn't this sad to see? Think of the people that were in that booth.
All the energy,
Great.
all the happiness we pumped out of there.
Let me ask you a question about Three Dog Night. Do you think they're ever going to make new music? New stuff or anything? I mean, do you keep in touch with them? You mentioned Danny Hutton. Are they ever going to do anything new for a change? Because I know in '83...
I haven't seen them lately, but I'm not sure.
Why did Chuck leave them? Do you know the story behind that? Why he won't tour with them anymore?
I think he had it's a speculation. I heard that he had a drug problem.
Would that cause him not to want to tour with the other guys?
No, maybe he wasn't capable of touring or something.
Let me ask you this: when you're not on the air, what do you do yourself for an entertainment? Do you surf, or do you? You look terrifically healthy. I mean, my God, you look like you look as young as I do, and I know you're a couple years older than me. What do you do for? Do you work out, or do you?
I do a little working out, and I'm doing voiceovers and stuff. I've got accounts in.
I heard you. I'll tell you. I heard
Palm
you on the radio.
Springs.
I heard you do a thing in Palm Springs. Some kind of a Is it a fair over there, or is it a amusement park or something?
Oasis Water Park.
That's it. That's it. Yeah, I heard your voice with another guy. They had you and another guy do the voiceover. This is the transmitter site down in El Monte. Have you ever been there to the Earl transmitter?
I have been there.
So do you think that KRLA is going to last much longer as the only music station on AM per se? Do you think it has?
I hope so.
Are they going to keep more or less the same format? You think, or?
I think so.
You mentioned. Some like Bob Dayton, for example. Can you tell me anything about Dayton? Any stories about Bob Dayton? You said you were pretty close to him. Anything you remember when he was there? Any memorable stories or anything that?
He just liked fast cars and same kind of women. I remember.
That was for real, or was just a rumor?
No, man.
He really did?
Yeah, that's what he liked. He's a good guy. I don't know where he is these days, but he was.
Yeah, I know where he is.
Where?
I can mail you his address if you want to talk to him. Mm-hmm. He had a stroke, and he's a cartoonist. He does cartooning, I guess. He submits them to the newspaper once in a while. Kopiagi Harbor, Long Island.
Really?
Yeah, I have his home address and phone number, and I can get it to you.
Good.
I have it at home, and I'll be able to.
Is he okay?
Yeah, he sounded good over the phone, but he won't perform. He said he can't really do a lot of performing anymore. They had a WABC reunion just recently. And
How old is he?
He was 36 and 69. So he'd be 46 and 79, 56 and 89, I guess 58, about 50. Now you're only, 47, aren't you? 47?
46.
40, you're only 6 years older than I am. It's remarkable considering you got in when you were so young.
Just a baby.
What do you foresee for yourself in radio? Say you get in KRLA full time, but
voiceovers.
Voiceover primarily.
Enormously rich voiceover artist. Won't be able to stand up with the weight of the money I have from talking. I like that idea.
Do you have like an agent, or do you?
No, I don't. I want one. But as soon as I get full time again, then I'll be in a better position to get the magic agents. And I should have one now, but I don't. But it's ready.
When you were at KRLA when you first started there, is there any stories you can say about some of the guys like Jay or Johnny Darren or?
When I went there, when I first worked there.
Mm-hmm.
Oh man, we were just a bunch of characters having fun. You realize this is a great job.
You guys pretty close? I mean, you guys socialize
Some
like
of us,
off?
Some of us, yeah.
This is back here when I took your picture. This is very nice. You can see. I appreciate that. I think I mailed you some prints of those.
Yeah, like you did. When was that, by the way?
Last December. In fact, that was only a couple blocks away from the old KRLA transmitter site down in El Monte. Remember they had a crafts fair down there, the South El Monte Crafts Fair or something. I'm trying to think of some things I want to ask you, specific things about the... Well, you mentioned when you did the disco stuff for Bill Drake on FM.
Mm-hmm.
You were one of the first jocks to do top 40 on FM at KKDJ in '72, because that's before FM was really a.
Rick Carroll was the program director.
Yeah,
very
he
good
passed away.
program. Very good program director. Very innovative. I worked for him at KKDJ.
Yeah, he died too young. That's for sure.
Yeah, he did. And I worked for him at KZY. Did afternoons for him at KZY Anaheim. That was a very successful run. Had a good time down there. I lived in Laguna and drove to Anaheim, right there by Disneyland. Played records. That was a good run. Then I worked for him again briefly at K-Rock.
I didn't know you were at K-Rock.
Yeah, just a little while.
Wow.
But that was back when their checks weren't any good, and you had to run to the bank when it was payday.
So are you pleased with like people like in my generation who are trying to preserve this stuff? I mean, do you like to see what we're doing? I mean, the work that, you know, because I mean, you have to consider that you know, you guys are our heroes. I mean, we'll never be teenagers again. We'll never be kids again. And so the people that impressed us as kids, you know, will always be, I mean, hey, you guys have always been a pedestal. So people like yourself, Dave Hull, Dick Biondi, Casey Kasem, I mean...
Well, you feel the same way about the radio station as I did when I was growing up. That I wanted to, when I got into radio, my goal was KRLA Los Angeles, because I'm from here, and I wanted to be back on what I considered the best radio station at the time. The most innovative and the...
It was, yeah.
It sparkled. There was something about KRLA, there was something about KRLA. And so I just set my sights on that station. I got there.
Did you ever meet any of the Beatles by any chance?
I met John Lennon.
You met John?
All right.
Informally or formally, or did
I met him at Martoni's.
He was just there,
He was there with Yoko, and they were having dinner. One of the record
How was
guys
he as a, you know,
seemed like a nice guy to me.
He's somebody that I will admire tremendously forever. You know.
Some of the people that stand out in my mind were Mick Jagger was very nice. When I emceed the show at the Forum, on one of their tours when they came through. John Fogerty, Janis Joplin. I got to work with Janis a couple of times. She was very nice. Not quite as crazy as everybody makes out, but...
it was part of an act, I guess. Like Emperor Hudson wasn't as drunk as he always acted to be.
Exactly,
You know?
exactly. I'm sure there's a lot of folks that have an image that they keep up, whether it be...
But your image is real. I mean, your image is as a sort of a playboy, as sort of a, you know... But you really, this is really Russ O'Hara. You're really that way.
Well,
really...
I've grown up, you know. In fact, I've let's see, been married a couple of times. I've had kids here and there and everywhere, but I think the playboy image. I don't know if that's.
Well, what I mean by that, I mean, as you know, I mean, people say Russ O'Hara, they think, well, there's a guy who goes to the beach and there's a girl on each arm. You know, I mean, people admire you. They want to be you. You know, there are people who want to be Russ O'Hara. You know? It's true. I mean, you know, you have this image that has lasted for many years.
Yeah, I have a good time.
That's great. Well, I'm trying to do my part, and I wish I had more respect for what I'm doing. I don't get a lot of people at KRLA. They, you know, Wagner is a very strange guy. He doesn't say much. I've only talked to him a couple of times.
Maybe he's afraid you'll write it down. What he
No,
says.
I think part of it is that I don't work in the business. I mean, I was always chicken to get into radio as a career because I didn't want to move around a whole lot. You know, I just wanted to settle down, get married, and you know, as I am now. I didn't want to live out of a suitcase and move to stations all through the United States and work my way back to LA. You know, that was why I decided radio had changed. So I feel that what I can best do is talk about and write about how radio was and preserve it because it was so special and it'll never happen again. I mean, who's going to write about radio today?
What's to write about?
Mark and Brian? I mean, give me a break. I mean,
Howard Stern. Hello.
Those guys aren't. They're not in the same category as, say, Russ O'Hara, Dick St., Jay Stevens, Shadow Stevens.
They were never music-oriented jocks. You know?
Yeah.
The guys who like.
I don't think they're very talented myself. I don't personally care for Mark and Brian, Howard Stern. But then again, I mean, hey, I'm 40 years old. I mean, people that I grew up with were. Well, I was 18 when I first heard you, so I'm in KRLA. So I mean, the people that really impressed me were people like Dave Hull, Emperor Hudson. You never use a lot of comedy. That was one thing I wanted to ask you about. You never seen a branch off
stuff.
Yeah, you never did that. I noticed. Even you did mornings. You never were a comedic jock.
No. I figured that. I thought I'd let the music say something for itself. Play the music, because the other guys were doing a lot of talking across the street. So I figured, well, maybe I'll just play the music and get into them that way.
Do you remember a very memorable line you used to use on your show? You used to always say when you did the morning show, "How's your head?" Remember saying that?
Yeah.
A lot of times you say, "It's Russ O'Hara, KRLA, how's your head?"
So how you feeling this morning?
Let me ask you an off-the-beat question, if you don't mind. You know, you've been to these remotes. There is a lot of bizarre people that hang out at those things. And I saw you once at a remote And I mean, these people that come up to you and stuff, and I mean, how do you maintain your sanity with all these? I mean, these remotes attract a really bizarre group of people. I was at one remote, and some of the people hanging around there. I mean, these guys. I mean, I don't know. You know, I mean, they were like let out of the hospital last week. You know, how do you when you go to these remotes? Does that depress you seeing all these pseudo radio groupies hanging around those things, or you know, when you actually go out there and actually at the remote, does the
Well, you know, there are listeners, right? Whoever comes, whatever their mental state or financial state or whatever, you know, there are listeners and there are people too. So
I saw at this one remote. I didn't go up and talk to you because I didn't want, you know, I didn't want to, you know, I was, you know, I wanted to have something to give you, and I didn't have anything at the time, and I just happened to show up there. And this one guy brought a radio, and I remember he stuck it like in your face and said, "Hey, Russ, what do you think of this?" And he held this radio, and I mean, I felt sorry for him. My God, this guy, you know, here's Russ here. He's trying to go home. You're trying to walk to your car, and here was this guy shoving a radio in your face and everything.
Amen.
And it sounded like you said, "Hey, get out of my face." You know?
No, now these are our listeners, and you know, they see the guy that they hear on the radio and that they identify with. So it's supposed to be friends with them because they're your friends. You know, you mean something in their lives that if they take the time to come out to a remote to see you, you know.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm saying everybody like yourself, you want to have a certain, you know, privacy. And I mean, here's you're walking to your car, you know, here you are trying to get home, and these people like trail you out to your car. It's like, oh my God, you know.
I'm used to it.
Yeah.
That's part of the biz. That really doesn't bother me. I like radio.
Yeah. Well, a lot of people like you, Russ. All I could say, a lot of people, you know, like you and respect you and grew up with you. Even though you were only like 6 years older than me, I mean, you were like, hey, you were like a big brother to me. I mean, here was when I used to listen to you, I heard Russ O'Hara, and I mean, you know, you have this image of being, you know, all these girls hanging around you and stuff. And I said, oh my God, that guy must have a black book about this thick. You know?
A lot of girls.
I mean, it's neat to, I mean, to me, I mean, that's envious. I mean, you know, I'm happily married now and stuff, but I mean, at the time, I mean, you were like carrying out a fantasy for all of us. I don't know if you're aware of that or not, but.
Yeah, I used to get comments all the time, you know. There'd be girls sitting on my porch when I get off.
Is that going to be all for you today?
I guess so. Are we done?
Yeah, can I have another light, please?
I'll have another light, too.
Yeah. And a glass of water, if you don't mind. And I'm all done here. This is fine. This will wait whenever you have a chance.
Yeah, there'd be young ladies out by the porch. I'd say, Russ, I'm hungry, and they'd bring me food. And, yeah, the perfect shift was 6 to 9. I mean, you could go dating until 4 o'clock.
There's a question I want to ask you. I just wrote it down here, and how would you compare the different PDs? Cox, Darren, St. Stevens, and say Reb Foster. Were they all different in their approach?
Yep.
Were there some guys you liked working with better than others?
Yes, there were. I didn't like the guys who fired me.
Why would they fire? Why would they fire you per se? Did they ever give you a reason? They just didn't like you, or did they just think you were?
Who knows what the real reasons were? But nevertheless, the end was the same. They'd let you go.
Personality clashes.
I think that was a threat to some of them. I think it was an actual threat. You know, I never.
Did you ever want to be a PD yourself?
Not really. I just wanted to play my records, but I had really good ideas for music and stuff. I realized that being a PD is a ticket out, and that most of the guys that worked as PDs didn't really have the control that they should have had. They should have autonomy when you're running a radio station, when you're responsible for the programming, what the station sounds like, then you ought to be responsible, and you shouldn't have to take any guff from management. You know, let you do it.
Did you say you saved some stuff from radio, like old pictures? Because if you have that picture of Cayman, of you from Cayman, I've been looking for that for 20 years. Nobody has it, but I remember
somewhere in
it.
storage. I do.
God, if you could loan it to me,
if I can find it,
I'll give it back to you. I just want to make a print.
If I can find it.
It was in an Entertainer, and they had like a bio sheet of you too. I think it was Robert E. Walker, Mark Ford. I think it was Robert E. Walker 6 until 9 in the morning, 9 to noon Mark Ford, Russ O'Hara noon to 3, Dave McCormick 3 to 6, T. Michael Jordan 6 until 9, I believe. 9 to midnight I think was Brad Edwards, and I think midnight to 6 was Johnny Hill maybe. Can't remember, something like that.
Well, you got him down. You got a great memory for this stuff.
I wish I'd make some money on it, Russ, but I haven't made any money at this. What I'm trying to do is to get other people to do this too. If I do it, I figure someone will say, hey, I can do better than Bill Earl. I can do a better job, and then they'll come out with it. Then I can buy something.
Well,
but I don't get a lot of respect in the industry, I'm afraid, Russ. A lot of times I've called Mike Wagner. He hasn't returned my calls this is disheartening because, I'm on your side. I'm on the side of the station, but...
well...
I wish I could talk on KRLA. I wish they'd let me do something on KRLA once in a while, like do a little historian spot. Every few hours do, this is KRLA as it was, and then do like a little bit or something like that.
Well, let me get in there full time, and maybe I'll have some influence. You never know, Bill. But I appreciate it. That's why I always talk to you. Trying to appreciate it. The guys, there's some of us that really love KRLA. China didn't get to work very long.
He made an impression with me.
No, because he was a good guy.
Yeah. China's been very good. Michael Hunter, another guy, has been very good.
Where's Michael these days?
In Napa, at KVYN. He calls himself Oil Can Harry. His real name is Michael Harrington. He goes by that now. No more Michael Hunter. And he does a music show there in the mornings. Napa, California, up there by the Bay Area. I just saw him up there. My wife and I just saw him about a month ago. Really nice guy. Looks good. A little heavier than he used to be, but hair shorter. Still a mustache. These guys here. Did you know BMR? Did you know B. Mitchell Reed at all?
A little bit.
A little bit. Not very much. Dave Diamond. You knew Dave. I think Dave took your place, if I'm not mistaken, at KRLA. When I think Dave took your place.
Well, that was probably the reason that Saint knew Diamond.
From KFRC.
Yeah,
so Saint
moved me out and moved him in. That was the deal.
And where did you go right after KRLA?
Where did he go?
No, you yourself.
What year would that be? I think it was
I don't think you went right to KKDJ. I think you were KKDJ
I
in
think I went to the beach.
Just hung out.
I hung out.
Do you still see Darren once in a while?
The last time I saw Darren was at that...
the reunion?
Yeah.
Have you heard his new station, KBLA?
Yeah.
Do you think it's going to make it as a...
That was my first station I ever worked at in Los Angeles, but it was a music station. It was in Bourbon.
K-Day or
KBLA.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
When were you there?
Oh.
That I did not know.
The first station I worked at in L.A.
Harv was there.
Yep.
Uncle Harv was there.
I worked there probably 63, 64. I bought my own show. That's how I got on radio. My first radio station was KBLA. I did 8 to 10, and I played oldies.
And you always use the name Russ O'Hara on the air?
Yep.
You did?
Always.
Always Russ O'Hara. You don't know how this thing about Russ Sullivan came out.
Yeah.
You never used the name because this guy swore that it's another fellow that apparently sounds like you. Okay, so yeah,
Never. Always Russ O'Hara.
Russ O'Hara. Oh, hungry. Always hungry. How's your head?
Well, I don't think you could even say that very anymore.
Nobody knows what it means.
Well, they go, what is he talking about?
Yeah.
The nomenclature of the day changes, speech patterns and phrases and stuff. Buzzwords.
This is a nice picture of you, though. It's a classic shot. I got you right down here, right next to Brother John and Bob Dayton, and right below the sun face.
I like that.
I tried to balance these pictures out where they're artistically centered in a certain extent. But I picked, the 14 of the best guys, 14 of the guys that I thought should be represented. I didn't want to have anybody on the front cover that's on the back. So obviously Johnny Hayes is here. He couldn't be on the front. But I want to pick people from that 70s period that are least, recognized. Do you see Shadow at all now?
No, I don't see Shadow like that too.
You're not really that close with him. I would love to get a hold of Shadow sometime.
He's probably a difficult guy to get a hold of too.
I haven't really tried. I talked to him when the first book came out because I didn't quite, write up the Shadow period as I should have, and I've made corrections for it in this new edition. I was a little hard on Shadow, I think, the first time. I'd been listening to Tom Murphy and Jay Stevens so long that when I wrote up the Shadow period, it was, it was like an epitaph to those other guys. And actually, Shadow had some very innovative ideas. It's just that it was failed from the start in AM because music, it was a music format, and music at that time was going over to FM. It didn't have a chance. But Shadow was extremely creative.
Oh, yeah.
I think China's going to try to get me a hold of Shadow when I get the book out. But hopefully December or January. It's being worked on right now. The chapter in here that is still being proofread is a chapter called Rude Awakenings. And I think you're in here, Russ. If you're in here, let me read you what I do have on you. This is chapter 11, Rude Awakenings. Let me see if you're in here. And if you're in here, let me see what I can read to you. If you're in here, let me just see what I have to say. I think you are in here, if I'm not mistaken. At least I can give you some input here on what I have here. Here it is. Another new edition joined Carolee in November 1981, and that was the return of Russ O'Hara. Russ O'Hara rejoined Carolee in November 1981 as a relief personality, filling in for one or more nights when Harvey Miller was unavailable for his show. O'Hara became the permanent substitute for Miller. The O'Hara of November 1981 was somewhat more subdued than the O'Hara of 1969 and 1970. No more, how's your head? That's all I have to, that's all that you were there. And then, I think I mentioned you again somewhere here. Oh, then I gave you some really good ink here. Oh yeah, listen to what I say about you here. You'll like this. Oh, wait a minute, maybe I don't, maybe it's, no, here it is, it's here. I gave you some really good stuff here. Here we go, listen to this, you'll like this. For the week of January 24th, 1983, Carolee signed Russ O'Hara to do afternoon drive from 3 to 7 p.m. as sort of an audition for that time slot to see how he'd sound. Actually, O'Hara sounded quite good, very fast-paced and slick. It was clear that O'Hara wanted that shift due to his excellent audition that week. And then as it goes on here, it says, then it goes on talking about Mucho Morales coming back. And then it mentions, okay, so Hull was set in morning drive and Hayes continued in middays. Even though O'Hara was excellent, and I have underlined excellent, even though O'Hara was excellent during his week in the 3 to 7 p.m. shift, instead of making O'Hara permanent as expected, the following week Carolee decided to try out Rebel Foster in the 3 to 7 shift, where Foster reigned for the whole week in early 1983. Foster sounded unusually restrained and not upbeat as he had in the past. It was said to us that Foster did not like having to audition for his old afternoon drive show that he had had so proudly back in August 1967. Oh, and it says here, Carolee was concerned about the high cost of either having O'Hara or Foster, which would be a sizable salary, as both men are names. And then what they did is they had Johnny Hayes do the whole thing. They had him like from 10 in the morning until 6 at night. A lot of it was all voice tracked, and they didn't use either of you guys. Now, that's something I hadn't asked you about. When Jack Roth left, you left at the same time and Jim Pewter came in as PD. Now, why did you leave when Pewter came in? Why didn't he keep you on?
I didn't know him. I forget who he brought in.
Roger Christian. Did they just say to you, I mean, I don't, since I don't work in the, what do they do? They just tell you one day, they said you're just out, or how does it work?
That's how it works.
Good Lord.
We're bringing in this other guy. We're changing directions. They like to use the phrase, changing directions.
And these guys, when they talk to you, they don't, these people who are PDs, they're not really that starstruck by you. They don't say, oh my God, Russ O'Hara, I mean, what am I going to say to him? In other words, they're not really fazed by your celebrity per se. No. I'd probably be a lousy PD because I would like everybody.
Well, a lot of times it's just bringing their buddies. Bringing people that they can control or they've worked with before. I'm not saying it's not a smart move to do that, but, there's thousands of guys that want to work, and there's only so many time slots, right? So that's what that's about.
How do you suppose Reb doesn't go back on? Doesn't go back? Is he just financially well off, or doesn't have to, or does he want to get back on? Or
We've talked about it. He's a little disillusioned with what radio's doing right now. It's not very innovative.
But couldn't Reb come back and do something about it? I mean, why couldn't Reb be hired in and just make the station his way, like Rick Carroll did to KROQ? I mean, just make the station his own way. In other words, why doesn't somebody take over a radio station, bring in people like yourself every 3 hours and say, look, you guys know how to do good radio, just do it. To hell with the research groups, to hell with the focus groups, just do good radio. Why doesn't anybody try that?
I don't know. Sure be nice. Like I said,
I would if I ran a station.
They don't seem to have any soul.
And let me ask another question. KRLA seems to be kind of stuck into the late 50s, early 60s, the oldies but goodies. And yet when you were at KRLA, it was in the early 70s period. And yet so much of that music isn't being played. How do you figure that Mike doesn't put on stuff like more Three Dog Night, more OJs, more, early 70s stuff rather than all this?
If you listen more, you'll hear what you want. And if I go on the air, you hear a lot more of what you want, because I'm going to push for that.
That's great. I hope you get the show.
I hope I do too. Yeah.
Is it Mike's decision, more or less, or?
As I understand, Harp's contract's up here sometime this next month or at the end of the month, and they'll make a decision then. But remember, that's.
Oh, I know. Yeah, no, I wouldn't.
Harv's
tuna left and
Harv's
steel
taking
left.
about 10 days off. He takes about 10 days off a month. I'm on the radio 2 days every weekend, and as a rule, it works out to about 3 or 4 days a week sometimes.
Is Harv? I've never met Humble Harv. I never met Humble Harv. All kinds of stories about the guy. Is he a nice guy off the air? I mean,
I like him. I get along with him.
He's a friendly guy.
He's
nice
nice to me.
Yeah.
Some folks would say the opposite, but then that's their dealings with him.
Yeah, I
he's been nice.
never met. He called me one day and he asked for a copy of the book, and I mailed it to him when Radio was boss. Did you like the book, the green one I gave you, with Jay Stevens on the cover? I think you're in there. I think a couple times.
Yeah. Nice stuff.
Well, all I could say is, hey, you guys are my heroes, and it's my way of giving back something you guys gave me for so many years. And I only wish that I was in a position to have more input in radio, but I'd rather report on radio than be part of the story myself. I'd rather talk about, and chronicle it. I just wish I'd get more respect, and I wish I would get more. But the book is going to be out. The book will cost my investors and me. It'll cost us about $3,400 the way it looks. About $3,400 it'll cost me and some investors to get the thing out.
Who's helping you? You got a couple of silent partners?
Yeah, Rose Wagner, Desert Rose in Oxnard. She was somebody who knew Dick Moran as a kid. She's an elderly lady. And people that have some money that want to see they want to do something, and they feel I'm the one that can do it with memorabilia.
Keep ringing about it. Yeah.
So no, the book will be out. It's just a question of getting the thing together. Right. And you're on the cover. I hope you're happy about that. I mean, that's the one thing I want to share with you, that a lot of guys are disappointed. I mean, I know that certain guys saying, well, how come I'm not on the cover? But it was a hard decision to make. It was a hard decision to come down with these 14 people. But I had to balance everything in. That's, and of course, this is the classic guys, the classic bunch of guys there.
You bet.
So you said you were kind of personal. You said you were married before, and you said you have kids like in their 20s, or
I got a baby. It's about 16 months old, a baby boy. And I have a 23-year-old daughter, and I have a grandson.
Are they? My God, your grandfather?
Yeah.
Good Lord.
A baby boy.
You break the stereotypes.
Right.
Do your kids want to go into radio? I mean, do they have any?
Let's see, I have 3 daughters and a son. Of course, the little boys are a little young to know what's going on. And my 2 other daughters are in Boulder, Colorado. I talk to them every couple of days. They're 10 and 8. And then, like my oldest daughter that I had in 1967 is 23. She lives in Oregon. Has a beautiful baby boy. So I'm resting.
Good Lord.
So I've been knocking around Southern California for a while.
That's great. That's really neat.
I'd love better. When you hear me full time, then maybe
I hope you get it. I mean,
maybe I can help with it. Maybe I can do something there. Maybe I can get you to some of these people.
Well, the main thing is,
I like what you do.
Russ, this is what I'd like you to do. This is what I would like you to do, and hear me out if you think it's a good idea. When this book comes out, I'd like to give you some copies. 2 or 3 copies for your family, for your daughter, and your wife, your current lady friend or whatever. And you're on the cover, obviously. And if you think the book is good, if you can drop in a plug on the radio once in a while and say, hey, I have this book, I like what it says, I'd rather have people look at the book, and if they like it, to talk about it.
You might want to get some of your investors to do this. I don't know how much money you've got to do it, but
very little. But
yeah,
these are people that it's like $1,000 from one person, 500 from another, 1,000 from another, and 2,000 from me. It's like one of those things.
Right. You might want to run an ad in one of the trades.
R&R or something.
Dream House. Just for those who...
China ran an ad in R&R. It was sad to see that. China Smith out of work. I mean, what I can't understand is when someone like yourself or China is out of work, how stations don't immediately just jump at you and say, oh my God, Russ O'Hara, name. Look at all the people you would draw, and yet they don't do anything with it.
Weird.
Now here's another question I want to ask you. In the K-Relay ads, this is the last K-Relay ad that they came out with. Why don't they have Russ O'Hara here? You were here then. Why don't they put your picture there? And did you wonder why they didn't put your picture there? It says the music and the DJs you grew up to, but where's Russ O'Hara? You're just working weekends, but I mean, shouldn't you think they would have put you there?
Yeah. Well.
This is when they had the air check day, April 1st. Great, that was a great day. Hey, here's an idea I want to run by you. Why don't remember April 1st how they had they played air checks to some of the old jocks? Why don't they do like an old air check day at Russ O'Hara? I could supply the air checks.
How many you got?
Hours, lots.
You do.
I'll give anything I have. Anything,
I want to listen to what you say.
I even got you from KKDJ. I taped these myself when I was just for the fun of it. I wish I had more.
Well, you're the only one that's got anything like that. I want all you got.
There are some people that have some of this stuff. No, I'll mail them to you. Just when I sent them to you before, I didn't even know if you ever got them. I hadn't heard from you, and then I thought maybe you were ticked off at me or something. And
No, nothing like that. I was going through the girl I was with decided to go live back up in Washington. The one that gave me the little baby boy. We'd been together 3 years, and she went off didn't like Southern California anymore.
Did she know who you were? I mean, did she know you as Russ O'Hara, or?
But she went back up to Washington, so I was kind of consumed with that for a few months. So that's probably why I didn't get back.
I've been there myself. I mean, I've only been married once, but I've had relationships, and it's. Believe me, I
up and down like everything else. Kind of like radio. They love you one day and they don't love you the next.
The friends you have, the friends you have that are non-radio related, how do you balance the Russ O'Hara, the celebrity, and then of course Russ as just a regular guy? Because I mean, hey, do they see you as a celebrity, or do they get to know you as who you really are?
Right.
I was just curious how you balance because you are a celebrity. You do a recognizable name. I mean, your face has been on surveys. I mean, my God, going back to K-Men.
It's I enjoy being myself, and there are friends that seem to be your friends just because you're in radio. There's other friends that take the time to get to know the real you,
Which probably isn't that much different than the radio persona because I'm so into the radio. I mean, that's my life.
So you really are. So you're really the way you are. On, you're really the whole.
I guess.
Because so many people.
My interest is I fly airplanes. I'm a pilot.
Do?
Yeah, I'm a pilot.
Did you take off from El Monte Airport at all?
Yeah, I've done that too. Pilot's license, Russ O'Hara.
Where is it? You really got one? My God. Oh, an actual
pilot license. That's a United States of America pilot's license.
Gee. I never knew that about you. That's interesting.
So that's the more intellectual, adventurous side of me. See, I come off like this real crazy on the radio, but really there's other stuff going on.
You sound like, you sound like, okay, you're 46. That's only 6 years older than I am. But I mean, you sound like you're still 25 years old. You're still burning the midnight oil. You're still out there partying. I mean, people imagine when Russ O'Hara gets off the air, he's got 2 girls in each arm. He goes out, he parties all night. I mean, it's this image. And I'm sure you've heard this before.
Yeah.
And I mean, is a lot of it is a lot of it's true. I'm assuming.
Yeah, it used to be true years ago when I settled down quite a bit when I had this baby boy. It's just been 3 months. But I'm trying to clean up my act as far as because you hope that reputation doesn't get to too many program directors. I mean, that's the image that isn't a bad image to have people listen to you on the radio.
But how many people can get away with it? I mean, you can get away with it. I mean, you have the looks to go. I mean, you look 10 years younger than you really are. Obviously, that makes a difference. Some of these guys have really aged. Some of the guys who came in, for example, do you remember Chuck Christensen?
Yeah.
Chris Charles?
Yeah.
He looks a lot older. His hair's snow white, and he's doing talk radio in Phoenix.
Yeah.
I just called him last week, Chuck Christensen. He goes by Chuck Christian,
Yeah.
And then Roger Christian, look at him. The guy committed suicide, The same thing as Del Shannon, that drug, Prozac. Most dangerous thing on the market, man. They should pull that thing. I mean, look at Del Shannon. He was going to be part of the Traveling Wilburys. They were going to sign him to take Roy Orbison's place. And Del Shannon, getting a whole comeback, a whole new generation would have. And the guy blew himself away. It's a shame.
That is.
I was at his memorial service.
It has something to do with your attitude.
But you know what's sad? More people weren't there. The only people in radio.
I was going to go.
The only people who were there in radio were Morgan. Morgan was there, Jim Pewter, and Gary Owens. Morgan wouldn't talk to anybody. He went there. He just was in a bad mood when he got there, and a bad mood when he left. And it was a sad thing. They played "Don't Worry, Baby" in the church, and we saw a slideshow of Roger all through his years. It was sad. I had a tear in my eye. I mean, 57. I mean, the music he contributed to. Brian Wilson wasn't there.
Well, Brian doesn't get out much.
Well, I guess he's kind of under a lot of control with his doctor. I guess he's, had a lot of problems. He looks good these days. Lost a lot of weight.
Well, my trick is keep a good attitude.
You have it. You really do have it. And I'm happy that you have a new son, and Rusty is his name?
No, his name is David.
David.
He's a cutie.
So you're really Irish then, Russ O'Hara. You really are Irish.
That isn't my real name.
That isn't your real name.
My real name is Neely. I'll spell it for you. So you can see what it's like. It's not spelled like. You've heard of Raleigh, Sir Walter Raleigh, right?
Yeah.
So,
I thought O'Hara. Your first name is Russ, though.
Right.
Russ is your.
Yeah, see, that's my last name.
Oh, Neely.
Neely. That's like Sir Walter Raleigh.
Oh my God, I didn't know that. Is this your son here? Oh, how nice, David. My wife is a maternity nurse. She works in East LA and delivers. Works in maternity, labor, and delivery.
Right.
Yeah,
He's a cutie, huh?
My wife. If my wife was here, she loves baby pictures.
Yeah, he's bigger than that now, but that's my boy.
Oh, that's neat. It's your first son.
Yeah.
Gosh.
But
And your grandson is named Rusty.
No, his name is Garrett Lee.
Who is Rusty you mentioned? Is it Rusty?
Me.
Oh, you're Rusty. Oh,
Yeah, I'm Rusty.
they said there's a Rusty. I was going to say.
No, Rusty is my nickname.
Oh,
Family
I
all
see.
calls me Rusty.
Did you know Bill Slater at all? Did you know him? He just nailed this thing. The guy looks good for his age. I mean, you know, the guy's I think about 60 now.
Pretty good for
He
60.
held my he's out of the business. But isn't it a shame somebody like him, who I'm sure you grew up listening to, is out on radio? He's a photographer. He does pictures. Retired in Texas.
The way it goes.
And Slater told me, he says hardly anyone remembers him anymore. And then I came along and I wrote this thing and I mailed it to him, and the guy's as happy as you can see, he's as happy as can be. This makes me feel really good to see this. You know, just like, you know, being able to meet with you. I mean, it's exciting for me, you know, people that I admired for so many years.
Well,
I wish the station would promote you more, and
Well, if I get full time, they will. As much as they can. For
Well, I hope
here's the goal. I'll tell you for me, but you know, just between you and me.
oh sure, yeah, my confidence. Believe me, I got a reputation.
When I get full time back at the station,
Are they gonna-
then I'm going to try and get on an FM station. I mean, I hate to leave Carolina, but I never know what AM's going to do next. The idea is keep working in your craft, right? You know, so
I mean, FM oldies and oldies format.
I don't
like
care if it's oldies or
CBS FM or.
you know, I'd tell them get on Kiss.
The guys there are so young. I mean, Matt Allen is young. You know those guys younger than I am?
That doesn't matter.
They don't. They're you know.
Well, that may be a factor. That's definitely a factor, but you never know. I'll be able to hustle your way in. It depends how you sound on the radio. If you're good on the radio.
That's what you'd think. You'd think it's that way, but unfortunately there's a whole generation of people that are even younger than I am that are running stations today. I think even Wagner's younger than I think Wagner. I don't think Wagner. I think Wagner's only 39. I think he's younger than I am. In fact, somebody told me the other day that he's younger than me. Well, what I would like to see is more early 70s stuff from KRLA. I mean, I think they should go. In fact, why isn't there a station? Okay, talking about music for a second, directing it toward music. Why is it? Okay, this has been bugging me for years, Russ, and if you can hear me out for a minute. When I grew up, an oldie was a song that had dropped from the playlist, maybe a year old, 6 months to a year old, okay? Like when you were in playing records at KRLA in '69. Flashbacks, or I think they were called Golden Touch in those days. KRLA Golden Touch was like a song from a year ago. Why is it oldie stations don't play stuff from a year ago on back? Where are the songs from the early 80s? For example, Rick Springfield, Jesse's Girl, Tommy Two-Tone and Jenny, 634-5309, Hymn by Rupert Holmes. Where are songs like that? Where are the early Hall & Oates songs like I Can't Go For That, or Man-Eater, or some of the disco songs? Nobody's playing early disco. There's a whole bunch of records that is not being played by oldie stations, and it's like oldie stations seem to want to cut off their songs in maybe '71, and that's it.
That's these research groups that think they know.
Yeah, but okay. Say, for example, you go to high school. You go to high school from, say, 74 through 78. Those are your years. You always remember your high school songs. I do. I was in high school from 66 to 69. I always remember my songs. Where is a person who went to high school from, say, 74 or 75 through 77 or 78 supposed to hear their songs? Nobody plays them. What can be done? I've been saying this there's a program director in Oregon named Bob Harlow. He's programming KKSN in Portland. And I said to him, why don't you play early 80s oldies? What about early Duran Duran? I mean, they're oldies to some people.
Yeah, right. I agree.
Yeah, to take somebody 25 years old, when they were in high school, 7-8 years ago. Where are their oldies? You know what I mean? No one's playing this stuff. And wouldn't it be neat if the station did this? And
Well, I like that kind of music. You know what kind of music I like? It's the music I was playing, that I was pushing for in '69 and '70.
Yeah.
I mean, this guy, he was the music director, and at the time,
Great guy.
Yeah, he was a great guy. But I had some differences of opinion about music with him.
Like what, for example? This is interesting. Like what?
Well,
he wanted more bubblegum, and you wanted more
No.
heavy?
He wanted like real soft sounds.
You're kidding, really?
No.
I didn't know that.
And I said, well, I'm at night. There's a whole different audience at night. So one time, I went down to Tower Records, And I knew that the ratings were this week, that they were going to hand in the books, the arbitrary rating book this week. And I was determined to get those ratings. And it's a Saturday evening, and I was going to go on the air. And so what I did was I watched what everybody bought. I just watched what they bought.
This is Tower on Sunset.
On Sunset. And I bought Who's Next by The Who, Buddy Miles, new Rod Stewart, whatever was happening, about 6 or 7 new albums, maybe 4 or 5. Went to the radio station, took them out of the cellophane, laid them on the turntable, and played them. And he was on the phone in about an hour, man. And he'd go, what are you doing? I go, getting ratings. I put the phone down and continued to play my music.
But, you know, people don't associate Russ O'Hara with progressive. Okay, people mention Shadow Stevens, Jimmy Rabbit, and you immediately think, hey, those guys are heavy music. But Russ O'Hara, you never have had from what I understand, you never have been really the reputation of being a progressive jock. It always was more top 40.
Yeah. Well,
do you see yourself more progressive than maybe you've been given credit for in the past?
It's
I mean, if somebody were to say Jimmy Rabbit, you'd say, hey, Rabbit will play underground cuts. But Russ O'Hara, they think, oh yeah, you know, top 40, you know.
Well, I think I balanced, because I played a lot of good stuff.
Yeah, I know you
But
did.
I played that with, but I mixed the top 40 with the album cuts. And that's why I think I got such good ratings.
I listened to you. I know a lot of people that did.
Yeah. And that's what it was, that balance. But I was out there at the concerts, and that gave me credibility.
You remember the Three Dog? You always were Three Dog Night at the
There's
Forum.
a bunch of them. Yeah. I'm on there, Three Dog Night at the
I know
Forum.
the album.
Yeah.
You're on the album. Did you get royalties for that? I'm sure or not.
It's nice to be on there. Just nice.
I have the album. I own the album. It's still at home. I have the actual record I bought. I don't think it's been released on CD yet. I think it's still out of print. Here you go. Here's a card if you like.
We don't take credit cards.
Oh, you don't? Okay, no problem. But anyways, you know I have the record. I have the record at home. And it's you're right out there. It says, ladies and gentlemen, Three Dog, one of the
heaviest groups in America. The Three Dog Night.
But
anyways, Dick's on the cover of Volume 2. And, you know, this is basically just, you know, Jimmy wrote something very nice. How do you feel about him as a morning?
I like
Do you think he's a good morning man?
well,
He's non-comedic. I mean, after Tuna, it's kind of a hard... Is he going to last as morning man? I mean, that was kind of... A lot of people thought, hey, they're going from Tuna, who's comedic, to O'Neill.
I guess if you're a morning man, you got to be funny. Right?
Do you think they may maybe move you to the mornings and have O'Neill
I
afternoons?
don't think I'm that comedic.
You know, that's true. You were mornings, though, Caroline 69.
I don't think they'll put me on. I think the ideal slot for me is the afternoon drive. It's a good time slot.
How long do you think Johnny Hayes will last in radio? Do you think he'll stay there forever? Do you see him retiring in the foreseeable future, or do you? I mean,
No, I think he'll hold on.
He'll just hang on forever.
Yeah,
You don't think
until he gets bored with it. But then what do you do when that's all you know how to do? That's all you've done in your life.
he could write a book?
Yeah, you could
He
write
could write a great book. He's worked with such, you know. The only thing about Johnny is, the only thing that Johnny doesn't like is the fact that he was fired by Dick Saint from KRLA in '71.
Hey,
He hates it. I know. Well, he to this day, did you hear that? This is something that I'm putting in the book. On Johnny Hayes' countdown show about 6 months ago, he counted down, I think, the songs from, I think, it must have been, I think, March or February or March 1971. And he mentioned the name Dick Saint, and he said, this is Johnny Hayes. And someone called up and said, whatever happened to Dick Saint? And Johnny Hayes says, Dick Saint? I think he's dead. I mean, I caught it. I got it, okay? But I mean...
Well, you know he doesn't like it.
I know he hates Dick Saint. And, well, Saint doesn't like Johnny either.
Right. Well,
Saint doesn't like Johnny.
When you talk to Saint, he goes, he didn't like Johnny Hayes.
Well, no, Tom Murphy said Saint doesn't like Johnny.
Oh.
He thought Johnny was too, a little spacey.
Well, he probably was in maybe at that time.
No, he was in all that heavier underground music.
Yeah, but he's cleaned up his act.
He looks like Mr. GQ. Yeah.
Well, he is. You know, he hasn't had a drink in 30 years, or whatever it is, 20 years, actually. But the point was,
This is a great man. This is a man that I just... Why this guy is not working, I just cannot believe. It's a
you
shame.
got Tom Murphy's number?
36334. I think it's 3633434. Try this one. 818-363-3434.
364.
363.
363.
3434. If it isn't, I'll call your answering machine and I'll leave it. I don't have my book with me with my phone numbers, but I'm pretty sure that's it. I think it's 363-3434. You know why Tuna left KRLA? With the story behind that? Just wanted to pay him enough?
No, that wasn't it. Who knows the inner workings of radio?
Does Mike have a lot of power on KRLA? Can Mike really do what he wants to do there? Can he make any change, or does he have to answer to like greater media?
I think he has to answer to Baptiste.
He does.
Why would you have a radio station and then it's a music station and then break to go to the Clippers? You know what I'm saying? I mean, how do you run a successful oldie AM radio station? Clippers basketball. Oh, back to oldies, huh?
How do you feel about oldie stations? How they? Okay, let me give you an example. There are songs that made the top 10 that stations don't play. Oldie stations don't play because they sound either too adult or too country. For example, Love Theme from Romeo and Juliet. That was a #1 record on Billboard. They don't play it. Some Perry Como stuff. Some Frank Sinatra. KRLA doesn't play it. Don Gibson. Donna
We used
Fargo.
to.
They don't play it.
We used to.
How do you feel that oldie stations, like KCBS-FM is the worst example, when they do their countdowns, they don't play these songs, and yet they were popular hits. Barry Manilow, for example. These are hits people played and people bought. How do you feel about stations that virtually rewrite history by ignoring that these stations were actually,
These songs were, yeah. Again, there's people that make these decisions. They make wrong decisions, but they're the guys that are in power. That's how it happens. Why they decide, well, that's not rock enough, that isn't us enough, we're not going to play that, we're just
But it still happened. It's still.
I know.
If all these stations want to be authentic, they're going to say, hey, this is what people actually bought. But yet, they leave these things out.
Right. Well, KRLA attempted to... I remember us playing in like certain years recently when we do specials on the weekends and stuff. There'd be a lot of instrumentals, Paul Maria, Love is Blue.
Yeah.
And the whole texture of the radio station for a certain hour would change.
Yeah.
It would sound like a different radio station.
You know what I liked? You did a live show from Pick and Save down in Cerritos. Do you remember
And
that?
I was playing a lot of 70s, 71.
It was all 70s.
And you loved it.
I taped 3 hours of your show. I taped all 3 hours of that show.
You got good. I want to hear about it.
I loved it. I mean, you were live. You were down there. You said, "Is Russ O'Hara? We're having a party. Pick and Save."
And I was just slamming those records. I was sounding real good that day.
I could tell you were talking about the concerts, UMC. You played. You talked about the Stones concert and stuff, and I mean, you were playing your music. You weren't playing all this 50s, shit. And I mean, it was neat. I loved it. Well, any of the tapes I sent you? None of the things?
No, man. Those got wrecked.
Wow.
That's too bad, too. Do you have a reel-to-reel?
No, I don't. Everything's on cassette now.
Okay.
But I'll dub them for you. Anything I have, I'll start tonight. I'll just dub everything.
You got hours
Don't
and
lose
hours?
them, though.
No, I won't lose them.
I don't know about hours and hours. I would say maybe adding up all the bits and pieces. It's hard to say. I don't, I somehow think maybe I
It's
have
the
more
only
than I really
record.
do.
It's
But
the
I
only
have stuff. I've got stuff. I mean, I've got little bits and pieces going back. I think I had one of your first shows in KRLA in '69. In fact, I have a newscast you did at Cayman. You want that? You want that? You did a newscast on the Harry Scarborough show.
How bad was that?
This is Russ O'Hara. This is Cayman News or something. You want that? I'll put that on there too. A Cayman newscast.
How bad did I do doing the news?
It was good. You weren't bad. You want that stuff?
Yeah, I
too?
want it all. Because that's
Do me
amazing.
one favor. Just let me know that you get it. You know, just
Okay.
call and say, hey, Bill, I got the tapes. Thanks.
Well, you're
Just-
welcome to call me anytime. Anything
Well, I don't
can
want to
help
bother.
you.
I mean, hey,
Oh, you're not bothered.
I respect your privacy, Russ, and that's why I haven't, tried to contact you before now. But this book is coming out, and I felt I got to talk to you before the book comes out because I would hate to have the thing come out and say, well, I didn't have a chance to talk to you. I felt I owed it to you. You're on the cover. I felt that I should,
Right.
at least let you know that, that
If you want to stress something, say it. Help put the station on the map in the 69, 70, 71 era.
you helped bring the station
Concert.
back.
Yeah.
And I
By
think
the public.
concerts.
The concerts.
The
And I'll
concerts.
I can list the concerts for you if you want to write them down.
Was there one
concerts.
concert that was more memorable to the other ones? Is there one particular that you...
Well, I had a lot of fun at all. I enjoyed the Stones, being on stage at the Stones.
When they were performing, where were you? Just kind of stood at the side?
Yeah.
You just kind of like stood over to the side, just kind of
Handed the mic to Mick.
banged a tambourine or...
No, I didn't do that, but I handed the mic to Mick, and he slapped me on the back, and I was a big star. I see what did I do that night. After the concert, I took 3 chicks to Malibu, and it was a moonlit summer night, and we all went skinny dipping.
Wow.
I mean, those were the days, man. I was a star.
Nobody can ever take it away from you.
No, I can't take that away.
And you realize how many people were just envious of Russ O'Hara? I mean,
Yeah.
like we
There
all...
was a lot of times I was let go from stations and radio station because of that. There was a lot of jealousy.
The what?
There was a lot of jealousy because I was living
Because
the
you had the looks and the image and...
yeah, and the car and the house at the beach and the perfect time slot, and I was like living. I was taking advantage of that lifestyle, and I was having a good time with it, and I knew I was having fun with it. I was probably a little cocky, but it came over good on the radio,
But people like myself, and I'm sure there are other guys like myself liked it because it's like saying, hey, this guy's cool. This guy's doing what we would do if we could do it. You were doing what we could do if we were able to do it, and we liked you. It's like you were like a big brother to us. I mean, we looked upon, hey, Russ O'Hara. I mean, this guy is, and that's my impression of Russ O'Hara to this day. When I heard you in like 69 and 70, I said to myself, my God, that guy's doing what I could do if I could do it. And
I was doing it.
And you gave that to us. I mean, people like myself, will always remember that. I mean, as part of our youth, hearing you is kind of a Pied Piper of us,
Well, stay here a second. I'll bring something back in that you might have not seen.
Sure. Oh, super.
You mentioned Pied Piper.
Again. Well, there's a lot of stories. Murphy told me that Dick was a great guy, but I guess, he had a drinking problem, and a lot of times he was unable to really handle the stress of being PD.
Right.
But I guess it goes in the business. So many guys have had,
He used to come down to my house at the beach, too, so for a while we were friends, and then he changed his attitude, I think there was a little jealousy involved there. Who knows? Anyway, this was,
Oh my God, Herald Examiner, August 9th.
Have a nice day.
Oh, thank you. Oh yeah, this is the famous picture they use. I never saw this before. Herald Examiner. That's the picture that this is based on. It's the same. Yeah, they used the photograph for this one. And what do they say about you? Oh, Wink Martindale. Terrible jock. Do you like Wink Martindale as a jock?
okay.
Let me see, what does it say here? Oh, Russ O'Hara. Russ O'Hara is a 6 to 9 p.m. star disc jockey of the 50,000 watt rocker K Relay and Pied Piper of the Teeny Boppers, that's true, who make up the bulk of the station's listening audience. He fits the image almost. A 24-year-old bachelor, the hazel-eyed, shaggy-maned O'Hara lives in a beachside Malibu pad, drives a Porsche, and flies airplanes for relaxation. But here the image comes to a screeching, grinding halt. You, and it goes on to the next page here. Okay, oh, that's a great picture there. You expect arrogance and glib tongue loaded with hip dialogue. You encounter instead a serious, intent young man who says simply of his success, I've been very lucky. O'Hara started in radio at 18 and kicked around California radio stations learning the business until he landed his current job at K Relay a year and a half ago. His on-the-air personality reflects his in-person mannerisms. Very subliminal, he says. That's the way to go. Just play the music. It sort of speaks for itself. You mentioned that. Music intrigues me. I've spent a lot of time in recording studios with friends. It really blows my mind. O'Hara also blows minds, notably of the teenage fans who flock to rock concerts hosted by O'Hara and certain segments of the underground press who, in supporting the underground rock stations, delight in taking potshots at the more commercial DJs. A hassle at the forum during a recent rock show resulted in the rumor that O'Hara has been banned from the forum. He shrugs and says quietly, "I haven't been made aware of it." Good diplomatic answer. For the future, O'Hara hopes to expand his horizons to encompass acting. Is that true?
Yeah, I was going to do some acting.
He attended the Lee Strasberg School but had discontinued classes because of a conflict with his radio hours. He plans on resuming acting lessons in the fall. "I like to give acting a shot, I really would," he says wistfully, but he also indicates that he has no plans to give up radio. Radio is my first love. Radio's been very good to me, and I notice a lot of actors doing voiceovers. He was mentioning that you were aware of that back in 1970, 22 years ago, just about. Working toward this end, O'Hara just completed an audition for a national company that was so secretive they wouldn't even tell us the name of the product. Do you know what it is now? Still don't know. He has he has national spots to the Mattel toy company to his credit, as well as commercials for record albums, and explains, "You gotta hustle. I kind of like money. Go." That's cool. I don't remember this, so I never read the Examiner, though. That's a great picture of you, though. Love it. That's neat. And what do you got here? This is another. Oh, this is the same article.
Yeah. They were very nice to me. They got reeled on Steele in here. They weren't very nice to me.
Yeah, I met Steele a couple months ago for the first time. Very nice guy. Off the air, he's not like he is on the air. You wouldn't even, you met Steele, haven't you? The guy is totally different. He just talks just normally, He doesn't say, "Hey, it was real nice Steele, baby." The guy is as straight as can be.
Yeah.
So you're a pilot. That's it. My mother used to fly airplanes as a young girl, I know. I never knew anyone was Hal Fishman's a pilot. Do you ever go up with him at all?
No, never.
He's a pilot, the guy on Channel 5 News.
He's a nice guy, huh?
I just know he's a pilot. I'm trying to think of the number of people I know in radio and TV that are pilots, but I think he's the only one I know of other than just the guys that... Have you ever thought of, doing reports like getting into traffic or anything? Mark Dennis does. Your old friend Mark Dennis from...
There's traffic, but I don't think he goes up in airplanes.
No, but he's branched away from music into another area. Darren has gone in. Do you foresee yourself going into maybe another area of radio besides...
We'll see what happens. We'll see how these next couple of years go with the radio station. I see myself getting into more commercials. That's what I see. Because you can make a lot of money with voiceovers. I mean, look at Casey Kasem.
Casey Kasem, yeah.
Ever get a chance to talk to him?
Oh yeah, I'm in his home. Casey's he's very guarded now. I mean, Casey by himself, but he has all these people around him that you can't get close to Casey anymore. I knew Casey when I was 14 years old. I mean, Casey, if you just sit across from Casey, he's one of the most nicest people you'll ever meet. Kind man. But because of his position today, he has a whole entourage. He's hard to get to. Very hard. I don't even think he reads his own mail. I think they screen his mail. He was living in the penthouse at the Beverly Wilshire Hotel, I believe.
Really?
I mailed him some stuff, and I think he's a very hard man to get to. But Casey's a wonderful person. I'm going to see Dave Hall in a couple of months.
Oh yeah. Dave's still living up there in Arcadia?
No, he sells real estate in Pine Mountain outside of Bakersfield. Real estate salesman. I don't think he'll get back. I don't think he'll get back in radio.
He doesn't want it?
I think all these guys want to. I think stations are just looking to a new. I think he goes back too far. Unfortunately, people running radio stations don't remember Dave Hall, which is too bad. That's for people like myself. I'll tell you, the one thing I would like to see happen by this book, Dreamhouse, is to see world famous Tom Murphy get a job. Because I'm really talking up Tom Murphy a lot. He is so funny, that guy. The guy, you talk to him on the phone, the guy says the funniest things. It's just, I can't believe a program director would not give that guy a morning show and say, "Tom, do whatever you want." I can't see why a station doesn't say, Russ, here's 4 hours. Go in there, play anything you want. Do anything you want to do. Just get the numbers. Wouldn't it be great if that could happen?
And I would too. I'd get them up.
Just say, Russ, you know the music. You've been around for years. You know the music. You have stories. Just go in there and do whatever you want to do. Play whatever records you want to do. Get people to listen and want to listen tomorrow. Why can't stations be run that way? Why can't a station just allow you guys to just...
I've always wondered why. I'm afraid they...
It's too bad Mike doesn't do something. He's in a position to do something, you know? Unless he just doesn't want to rock the boat or it's a play it safe type of thing.
It's a nice gig for him.
Thanks for letting me see that. That was great. Anything else in particular you want to say that I can put in the book? Because I can't thank you enough for meeting me down here. I mean, I've been trying to get together with you for months now.
When you get it written, I'd like to see it before you put it in the book. See if there's something I could add to it. I'd appreciate it.
Oh yeah, oh sure, yeah. I'll show you the galleys. In other words, yeah.
Right.
Do you like what I said briefly? That little thing I read to you about. I said O'Hara was excellent. I mean, you know, I've always liked you. I mean, you're somebody that I've always admired.
I'm a good jock. There's no question about it.
I mean, there are some jocks that I personally really don't. I think are good jocks. Wink Martindale. Do you know Wink?
Not very well.
I never liked Wink Martindale as a jock. I never did. I could sit in front. I mean, Wink may be a great guy.
Great on TV.
Kind of a Ken doll, kind of plastic, you know. I don't like. I never really liked Wink Martindale. No, that's just personal preference. Tom Murphy is probably my all-time favorite. Dave Hall, one of my favorites.
Easy, you're talking about some great jocks though, too. Talking about some great jocks.
Yeah, Dick Saint. I always liked Dick Saint.
Well, he was very good on the radio. There was a time when Carol, because of the people that they had hired in the time slot, sounded an awful lot like KHJ.
Well, they were
Saint
trying
sounded,
to, yeah.
Dick
Well, Saint
Saint
tried to sound like Steele.
And then they had me on at night, and they thought
You
I
didn't
sounded
sound like anybody. Who did they think you sounded
Well, I
like?
think they thought I sounded a little like Harv, like Humble Harv. Voice texture or something, I don't know.
Yeah, more like Jim Wood. I always thought Blue-Eyed Soul. I always thought Russ O'Hara was like the Righteous Brothers. You could sound black without really trying to, Because you don't have that deep, I'm talking to you right now, you don't have that deep a voice and talking, but on the radio, hey, it's Russ O'Hara.
For some reason, the mic.
Yeah, I noticed that. It's a mic technique.
Well, I don't know if it's a mic technique. It's just, for some reason, my voice just picks up really, really strong on the mic. Makes it sound real resonant. But I don't care. It's always worked for me. So.
Well, look at the jocks that are out of work or out of the business. How come China can't get a thing in L.A.? He's spent 20 years active on the air. Why don't they hire China? Why doesn't the station put him on the air?
Well, he deserves to work too.
Huh?
He deserves to work too, that's for sure.
But maybe because I am not in radio that I'm naive. But I mean, if I was running a station, I wouldn't allow if I knew these guys are out of work, I'd hire them immediately. Why would I hire a 20-year-old when I could get names that know the music, that have a generation of listeners that are of loyalty, that are professional, that are good, that have star power, box office.
Yeah.
China Smith is box office. Russ O'Hara, box office. You mentioned the name Russ O'Hara. What do I think of? Good times, good music, parties. That's what I think of when I think of Russ O'Hara. I think of the concerts. I think of Three Dog Night. I think of, I heard Russ O'Hara when I was going to a party, when I was coming home from a party. Russ O'Hara was like my big brother. That's how I associated, my memories. If I were to take like a psychological test, well, Russ O'Hara, what's the first thing that comes to your mind? I would say partying.
Good. Maybe that's what we should call it, the Russ O'Hara party. We don't call it a radio show now, we'll call it the Russ O'Hara party. That's a good idea. We'll make it a party. Hey, afternoon party, here we are. Have a good time.
Well,
That's a good idea.
Listen, hey, thanks for all the time you spent. I guess I don't want to take up any more of your time. You just give me a couple hours. Hey, that's wonderful. You made my day.
Bill, sometime you can come down to the radio station when I'm on the air.
I would love to, yeah. Well, when the book is out, do me a favor. When the book is out, if you like the book, judge it by its merits. And if you forget the old book. The old book, I didn't have anything to do. I was very unhappy with the way it looked. It looked terrible. It shouldn't have come out, but I didn't have the control over it. This book, I have total control over. If you like the way it looks, put a plug in once in a while, and that.
Well, you might think of, since it's about Carol, you might think about having one of us do a spot for it on the radio. If you can talk somebody on to.
Well, that's why I wondered what Mike says about what I'm doing, because those guys they put their cards to the vest. They don't say much. I haven't talked to Mike more than 2 times in the last 3 years. He's a very. But then again, I don't work in radio. Maybe these guys, don't want to really, I mean, again, I'm not in the business. I mean, I'm not one of his peers. So I mean, he would have, he may say, hey, why should I call him back? That type of thing.
Right.
But at least I'm talking about his station, and I would hope that Mike would be happy for that. At least I'm doing something.
Yeah.
But the book will be out, and you can say you made the cover of a book on radio history. So that's a credit for Russ O'Hara going back.
You bet.
And the one thing you can do for me, and you may forget, but if you can find that one picture of you. It was a came-in picture, and there was 2 came-in pictures. The first one they used, you had a turtleneck. I got that one. That was a casual shot. But the second
kind of
one,
looking down or something.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah. But the second one was more of a smile, and you had a light sport coat and a tie. That's the one I would love to get a copy of. If you have any print of that at all, on a Came-Entertainer, on a bio sketch sheet, if you can mail it to me, I promise you'll get it back within 48 hours.
Yeah. Well, we're so close, man. I'll give it to you. You give it back to me.
If you have it, I mean,
I don't know where it is. It's in storage someplace, but I'll look for it.
Yeah, it's the came-in picture with the tie. They only had one when you had a tie on, and you weren't there that long. I think you were only there 9 months or something like that.
On to Los Angeles.
On to KGFJ.
And to Carolina.
I'm still there.
I'm still there.
Let me ask you this before we go. When do you think we can expect to hear change on Carol in your when's this contract up?
October.
Who do you think they'll have do weekends? Can you put a plug for Murphy? Do you think Murphy'd be a good one?
Yeah, I'll put in a plug for him. I like Tom. I want to try and call Tom today.
Yeah, I'm sure his number is 363-3434. Because Murphy told me he put in for the same shift you got, the weekend thing. Murphy would be great. They should really put Murphy in the mornings. But I mean, O'Neill's. I like Jimmy.
I wonder if
I like Jimmy.
I wonder if Wagner thinks of him as a name.
If he reads my book, he will, because this book really says, "Hey, world famous Tom." I mean, when you read the afterword of this book as an editorial,
how long did they actually do the mornings in Carolina?
Not long enough. February '71 to July '71. And then Shadow, you see what happened was Shadow took over and they fired all the top 40 guys. They moved them all out to do the progressive format, and Murphy is not AOR.
Yeah, just a few months. Yeah.
But Murphy is so funny.
They moved him down from Seattle. He sold his house, brought his family down.
That's right.
Big, huge star at King or something?
At KJR.
KJR.
Yeah, and King. I think he was at King also. Don Burns is up there too at KOL. Do you see Don every now and then?
Every once in a while.
He's last. I've never met Don Burns. He's another guy I want to get a hold of.
He's a nice guy. Big voice.
Don Burns. Donald Scott Burns. How do you spell your name again? I was curious. Is it a capital L or is this single L? This N-E, that's not a capital L. Oh, I see. Neely.
Think of Raleigh.
Neely.
Cigarettes, Raleigh.
That's Irish.
It sounds like it to me. I think it's Irish, English, something.
And why'd you never use this on the air?
Because Russ Sneely comes out Sneely.
Oh, Russ Sneely. Yeah, the S in the end. Yeah. Now, O'Hara is it? Did you make the name O'Hara up, or is it part of your family?
It's my pilot's license, my driver's license, everything's O'Hara.
Your name, okay. I'll settle for that.
It's an AKA.
Sounds good to me.
So that's it's been with me so long, nobody knows that I have another name.
I never knew that. Yeah, I never knew it.
And you know everything. You know now.
No, believe me, I'm your cheerleader. Okay, just think of me as a cheerleader for you guys. And if you can tell Mike that do me a favor. If you talk to Mike, tell him you sat with me, and that I'm a good guy, and that I'm on your side. I'm on the station side, and my whole purpose is to is I have a love for the history of the station.
You know, what would be real good, this guy responds to writing. If you would write a real, writing, if you would write a nice letter.
He knows who I am. I'm just saying.
Right, anyway.
He may, you know, I mean...
Tell him the book's coming out again. Tell him you sure would like to talk to him. You know he's busy, but if you could take a few minutes, tell him that you're a cheerleader and what you think of the radio station. And
well, actually,
you know, if he responds or he doesn't. But,
yeah. No, I just meant as a person that, hey, that I'm a good guy and that I'm not doing a hatchet job on radio. I'm not doing an expose. I mean, you know, you guys are my heroes. You always will be. I'm not saying Mike Wagner's one of my heroes, but I mean, you are. You know? Mike Wagner could be doing a lot better on the station than he is, actually. I'd love to see Mike. I would like to see Mike do a lot more free form, bring in, you know, have you guys do more, you know, like the Russ O'Hara play 70s music. Play the music that people who, in other words, why have Russ O'Hara play 50s music? Why can't Russ O'Hara play the stuff that people who listened to Russ originally remember you playing? You know what I'm saying? In other words, why should Russ O'Hara play anything before 1960?